Hi, everyone. In today's lesson, we're going to begin a new unit, and this unit is on factoring. So this is the factoring flowchart that will help us decide what type of factoring to use when. Eventually, we're going to get down to all these different types of factoring, but for today, we're just going to focus on GCF, which you may know stands for greatest common factor. Now, you don't have to write this flowchart down. You will be given this in class tomorrow. So let's talk about GCF. So first things first, factor by GCF. So what that stands for is greatest common factor. So I think we should first start by defining what a factor is. So a factor is a number that divides into another number. So let's do an example with that. So let's just say I wanted to find the factors of 20. So factors of 20. I like to make a chart of all of the numbers that go into it in a chronological order. So let's start with 1. 1 times what gives me 20? Well, 20. Then 2. 2 times what gives me 20? Well, that's 10. Then I would try 3. So I'd put a 3 here and I would say, does 3 times anything give you 20? And you should kind of be thinking, no. So then we move on to the next number. How about 4? Yeah, 4 times 5 gives me 20. And then the next number would be 5. But what you notice is that you've repeated because 5 is already on this side. So there's no need to put this 5 here because 5 times 4 would also give us 20, which is the same thing as this one. So we don't need this one. Now, we also have to understand that there are other ways that we can multiply to a positive number, right? This is a positive 20. So we could have a negative 1 and a negative 20, a negative 2 and a negative 10, and a negative 4 and a negative 5. Remembering that a negative times a negative gives us a positive. So how could we get these factors more quickly rather than using our heads? We actually can use our calculators. So the calculator steps to find the factors would be as follows. You're going to go to the y equals. And in the y equals, you're going to, into the y1, you're going to put 20 divided by x. Now x is next to the green alpha button. So go to the alpha button and then button right next to it says X, I think theta. Click this button, and that button will give you X. Now, I can show you this in class tomorrow if you're having trouble, but in your Y equals, you're going to do 20 divided by X. Once you do that, you're going to click the table of values. Now, to do that, you have to hit second, and then graph. And this will give us the table of values. So step 1, click Y equals. Step 2, type in 20 divided by X. And step 3, hit second, graph. And this should in fact give you this exact table. You may need to use the cursor arrows up and down, but you should be able to see all of these factors. All right, so these are your calculator steps to find factors. So now what if the question asks you to find the greatest common factor between two numbers? So find GCF between, let's just say I want you to find the GCF between 20 and 96. So I think it would take a really long time for us to make these tables, right? Go to the calculator, find the table, find the number that's the biggest, right? Greatest common factor between them. So there's a faster way that we can do this by using the calculator. So what we would do is we could hit the math button and go to scroll over to number and hit choice 9, which should say GCD. So follow those steps with your calculator and let's plug in 20 and 96. So you would type that in, you have GCD, then you would type in 20 with a comma. The comma is above the 7, and then 96, and hit enter. Now, if you try that, you should get 4. So this is another calculator step to find the GCF between two numbers. Now, what if I asked you to find the GCF between three numbers? So what if I gave you the numbers 16, 216, and 36. And I said, find the GCF between those three numbers. So unfortunately, the calculator is only capable of putting in two numbers into this GCD function. So what we have to do is be a little bit creative. We actually have to find the GCF or GCD of these two first. So GCD of 16 and 216. Then find the GCD of these two separately, so GCD of 216 and 36, and then find the GCD of those answers. So take a couple seconds and put these two into the calculator, pause the video, and hit resume when you're ready for the answer. Okay, so for the first one, I actually got 8. The second one, I got 36. So now, if I want to find the final answer, I need to take the GCD of these two. So GCD of 8 and 36. So I'm going to ask you to pause the video, try it, and hit resume when you're ready for the answer. All right, so you actually should have gotten 4. And that is your final answer. So if somebody asks you to find the greatest common factor between these three numbers, the answer would be 4. Again, you have to do these two first, then these two, and then you arrive at your final answer. All right, now that we know the definition of factors, how to find them on the calculator, and how to find the GCF between two numbers on the calculator, I think we're ready to finally practice some problems. All right, so the directions say factor each expression using greatest common factor. So the first one says 4x plus 4y. So obviously if there's a 4 here and a 4 here, both of these two terms, the 4x and the 4y, are both divisible by 4. So your GCF here is 4. So the way that we factor using GCF is we find that GCF and we divide both pieces by it. So we're going to divide both pieces by 4. And what we do is we put the GCF on the outside, followed by an open parenthesis. And then we actually do our division. So 4x divided by 4, these 4's actually divide out to 1. Anything divided by itself is 1. So 1 times the x that's already there is just x. Now these 4's over here divide out to 1. Anything divided by itself is 1. 1 times the y that's already there is y. And then we just bring down the sign in the middle, and this is my factored expression, 4 times x plus y. Now you could always check your answer to see that it works by distributing it back out. So if you did that, right, here's our answer. If we distributed 4 times x is 4x and 4 times y is 4y, which is my original equation. So that's a good check to see that you did the problem right. Okay, let's try example number 2. So we've got 14x squared minus 21x, and I want to factor using GCF. Now, 14 and 21, some of you may know the biggest number that goes into it evenly, but if you're not sure, you always can revert back to that calculator. So go to GCD and put in 14 and 21. Now, unfortunately, this GCD button, you cannot use x's in it, only numbers. So the x's we're going to have to do separately and in our heads. So if you go ahead, type this in, you should be getting 7. So that means 7 is the GCD between these two numbers. So I'm just going to rewrite it. So we've got 14x squared minus 21x. So I'm going to divide both pieces by the GCD, which is 7. Now, whenever you have letters, x squared and x, it's very simple. All you do is take the lowest power that you see. So this is an x squared and this is an x. So the lowest power is just the x. So we're going to divide by 7x. So with letters, take out the lowest exponent. Now, if you do that, it'll always work. So we took out our GCF of 7x, we put it on the outside, followed by an open parenthesis, just as we did before. And now we're going to divide. 14 divided by 7 is 2. X squared divided by x, we keep the base and subtract the powers. So 2 minus 1 is 1, so 2x. And negative we can bring down. 21 divided by 7 is 3. And these x's will cancel out to 1. So 1 times the 3 is just 3. So we can leave it as that. So this is my final answer. Again, you can check it by distributing the 7x back out, and you should get your 14x squared minus 21x. Okay, so let's try example number 3 now. So I want you to factor x times 2x minus 9 plus 7 times 2x minus 9. So this one may not be as easy to see, but I want you to consider something along these lines. What if I gave you xa plus 7a? Clearly, there's no number in common, right? There's no 7 over here. But notice there's an a in common. So we can take out a GCF of a, actually. So we're going to divide both pieces by a, put the GCF on the outside, followed by an open parentheses. The a's will cancel. I'll be left with x. These a's will cancel, and I'll be left with 7. So I want you to consider this the same thing, except this is your a. So you really have xa plus 7a. So you see how your a is your common factor? I know it's weird and this is much easier over here, but we're going to divide out that a. Or in this case, we're going to divide out the common factor of 2x minus 9. So your 2x minus 9 is actually that common factor. So what do we do with GCFs? We put them on the outside, followed by an open parenthesis, and then we do our division. So the 2x minus 9s will cancel to 1, and we're left with the x in front. The 2x minus 9s will cancel, and we're left with the 7. So your final answer for this is actually just 2x minus 9 times x plus 7. And that is your final answer. All right, that's enough for today. If you have any questions, please jot them down. Otherwise, we'll see you in class tomorrow. Have a good night.